Hello and welcome to your weekly wander into the world of electric cars, brought to you by the team at electrifying.com. On the podcast this week, we are talking about Tesla's Twingos and award-winning EVs. Plus, we'll be answering your car buying questions and dipping into the postbag to find out what you've had to say over the past week. Welcome to the Kilowatt Half Hour. I'm Ginny.
I'm Vicky.
And I'm Tom.
Hello, gang.
Hi.
Hi, Vicky.
Hello.
Happy New Year.
Hello.
You weren't with us last week because you were off doing some prize giving,
I
weren't you?
was.
Yeah, where were you?
Yeah, absolutely. I was out in Brussels helping with the live stream of the European Car of the Year award, of which I'm a juror. So that was actually it went really well. I was really pleased with it. And so we had our 7 shortlist cars at the end of last year. We did final decisions last week. And drumroll, please, the winner is the Renault 5. Which I suspect, isn't a huge shock to a lot of people, but nonetheless, it was really close between the Kia EV3. Actually, did get a lot of votes as well. That was and I know a lot of people were really keen on that, and the Citroen EC3 C3, obviously petrol and electric stands. For that award, it was great. I really enjoyed it, and I'm just really pleased that this year we've had such a great shortlist. There wasn't really a bad car on the shortlist at all, and really good sort of spread of cars. So yeah, really enjoyed it, and well done Renault, because well deserved. It's a fabulous car. Yeah, really good.
It is a good car. And I know when we were deciding on our car of the year last year, we went back and forth between the Renault 5 and the EV3, didn't we? And in the end, did plump for the EV3.
Yeah.
So they were so close, both of those. And also, I think it's just interesting because a lot more European jurors voting for that award. It's a European built car. Different things play into the decision making, don't they?
Yeah, absolutely. But I mean, it was notable, I think, this year that I think all the big markets, the Renault won in the vast majority of them. So it wasn't just France and the UK. I think everybody really went for the Renault, and the Kia. Citroen was third. So yeah, it was really, really good. But what the irony wasn't lost on me that, not irony, I suppose. We made the right decision. We were sort of swaying between exactly the same 2 cars, so
Yeah.
it was interesting. So well done, Renault and Kia and Citroen and all the other shortlist cars.
Absolutely.
And I hear that there's news from World Car of the Year, Jenny, as well. Is that you've been?
There is. We have quite a long process at World Car. So we do driving in November, and then the big long list is whittled down to a list of 10 for the overall Car of the Year, and then 5 in individual classes. And that has been announced this week. So in the World Electric Vehicle, we've got the Insta, the EV3, the Macan Electric, the ID Buzz. I'll come back to that one in a minute, and the Volvo EX30. So all, I'm sure we can agree, really good cars. But the interesting thing is, because this is a global award, a car has to be for sale in a certain number of markets in order for it to be eligible. The ID Buzz has only just gone on sale in North America because they've only taken the 7-seater version. They didn't take the smaller version, which means now that in 7-seater form, it's eligible for the World Car of the Year, and it's got nominated. And then if we look at the overall World Car of the Year, we've got EV3 in that, we've got the Insta in that. Interestingly, Mini Cooper Electric got in that, but not the Mini, the standard Mini. They separated those out. So Cooper Electric's gone in there. So yeah, interesting. And that will be announced in April. So we go off and we do lots of driving again now. And then we do another round of voting. And then the winners are announced at the New York Auto Show in April. So yeah.
Well, I assume the Renault 5 isn't going on sale in enough markets, is it?
No, it's not going on sale in enough of the markets that it needs to be seen in. So it needs to be, So if it's just mainly a European focused car, they don't tend to be in the running for World Car. So Tom, you drove the EV3 for the first time last week, didn't you? What did you think of it? Yeah. Was it a worthy winner of our award?
Oh, it was a worthy winner. I was slightly disappointed with the interior, but I think it looks great on the outside. Yeah, there's just some, like the door panels. I just think there's like blocks of grey that almost look like kind of reminded me a bit of a sort of hospital interior. But and the door handles feel cheap. That sort of thing. But the ride on it's incredible. It feels as though the body shell's really stiff, which just means that I was kind of ramming it over speed bumps just to see how it coped, and it was doing really well. And of course, it's very efficient. And we've the video coming up, which is versus the Renault Scenic, which is something that a lot of listeners to the podcast had requested that we do, because they're the same on the monthly cost, because there's some good deals on Scenics around. And it was really interesting because the interior on the Scenics better, but the efficiency wasn't as great. So it was a really interesting comparison. And that EV3, the way they've managed to make it efficient is great, and the space is good and all those sorts of things. But just because I expected it to be perfect, I was a bit like, with the interior. That's all I would say. But of course, I like being controversial, don't I?
You do. You do. You always have to find fault with something. As my grandma would say, Tom, never happy unless you're moaning.
Yeah, exactly.
So I'll tell you what caught my eye in Brussels last week, Vic, a car that I absolutely love and adore, and I'm keeping everything crossed comes to the UK. We saw the Twingo's interiors. Talking of interiors, looks lush, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's very
So
cool.
nice. I mean, the external sort of packaging on that car, I think, is cute as anything. We've got a sort of quick walk around video of that here on the YouTube channel if you haven't already seen it. But we did see the interior and find out a bit more. And it's Renault are doing really nice, vibrant interiors, and I thought it looked fantastic. But I'm only looking at pictures. What was it like when you actually sat in it and saw it and had a good poke
Oh
around?
yeah, really cool. I think they've done a fantastic job on it. I mean, don't forget it is still a concept car, so it's questionable how much of it will
Yeah.
make production. So I think at the moment, so we did have a quick chat with the Renault designer Sandeep Bampra, who's a lovely guy, and he was sort of talking us around it. And he wouldn't commit to how much of it was definitely going into production and how much wasn't. I don't think I would expect the really fantastically colourful sort of upholstery, which is a bit sort of a throwback to the original Twingo. It's quite interesting because it's like Renault's trying to sort of ignore the fact that they've done 3 generations of Twingo, and they've just like, no, this is harking back to the Twingo, the Mark One Twingo, the one that everybody thinks about and talks about. And but it's so clever and surprising amount of space in there, and yeah, really cool little details. I love the font they've got for the Twingo badge, and yeah, some really clever stuff. And I think it's a really smart looking interior for the price of the car. You can't really knock it, can you? So yeah, really cool. I think they've done a really good
That's right.
job. What did you think of it?
I thought it looked really lovely, and I think as you did, I was like, "Oh, how are we going to see this on the production car?" But then I remembered with R5, it's actually very close to the production car, and I think that was one of the great
Yeah.
things with when we saw Renault 5 is that it wasn't disappointing, and it
Mm.
still had a really cool looking, vibrant interior. I do think Renault are on a bit of a roll design wise, although I was slightly disappointed with the Renault 4
Mm.
reboot when I saw that. Just, I don't know, just didn't really wow me in the way that the Twingo and the Renault 5 did. So yeah, I mean, I think it's fun, it's funky, it's affordable. If they can get it in near that pricing, it's just like another reason to celebrate small electric cars. So
Yeah.
are you a fan, Tom? Are you
Yeah, I
yeah.
love that. I mean, I love the original Twingo. I thought it was such an innovative design back then,
Mm.
and was gutted they didn't bring it here. And have actually sort of looked at bringing one of the original ones in as a sort of classic car. So the new one, yeah, it's a fantastic looking thing. And you've got to make cars that appeal to the heart. So the Renault 5 appeals to people. So they have to go out and buy. They have to have one.
Hmm.
Same with the Mini. Same with the 500. Whereas if there's a new, slightly crazy design, people don't necessarily feel that same pull to go to the showroom and buy one, do they?
Oh, we're going to
Mm.
be talking about that soon in the comments because we had a massive response to. We asked the question last week, Vicky, are you a car extrovert or introvert? And we had loads of
Oh,
questions, so we can ask you what you are
yes.
when we come to that. But let's move on to the Model Y, Tom. Tell us all about the Model Y.
Yeah, so Tesla revealed without any warning, which is always good fun when you're doing the news, the facelift Model Y. I mean, we knew it was coming, but not quite when. And well, the pictures they've released, and we've had to kind of do screen grabs from the Chinese website, I think are possibly quite flattering, because there have been some other pictures online which show it in a slightly less flattering light, where it looks kind of low at the
Mhm.
front, but it's got that kind of light strip across the front of it, like the that Robo Taxi had, which is, I think, quite a cool thing. So we'll
Yeah.
have to wait and see what it looks like in the metal, but a bit like the Model 3, it's got a slightly better interior, but more efficiency. So the range has gone up to 447 miles in the longest
Wow.
range version, which is quite a lot more. It's a good sort of 80 miles more than the previous car. And hopefully they've maybe sorted out the ride. I think that was our only other complaint about the Model Y previously.
Yeah, it didn't actually ever bother me massively, the ride. But I know that if you err on the side of preferring a softer ride, you would absolutely hate it. I'm quite happy with a slightly firmer ride. I know you really like more of that sort of comfy, you love the ride in a
Mm,
Citroen or a Lexus or the Toyota, don't you? And I can see that for some people it was
mm.
just way too much. I'm also pretty sure that there's probably been some rather sick kids in the back of that car
Hmm.
on road trips who've eaten too many sweets. I'm sure of it.
So I heard that they actually slightly tweaked the suspension on the Model Y as it went through production. So they'd never really
Okay.
made any official announcements, but I've heard a lot of people say that if you get a later one, they actually ride quite a lot better. And I think wheel size, they're very sort of sensitive to that too. Because when I first
Yeah.
drove the Model Y when it was first launched, I thought the ride was it was a proper bag of nails. It was terrible. I just didn't think I could live with the ride on it. But then I did drive a later
Mm.
one and it felt a lot better. But I
Mm.
have no, I haven't. Elon hasn't told me that himself, so you're going to have
Mm.
to check on the
I
internet,
think
and I'm sure that you'll find it. But I believe they did get slightly better. So yeah, I think the later ones were better for that. But
they're also quite susceptible to tire pressures. So I've heard
Mm.
on various forums and things that they tend to ramp up the tire pressure to like 45 psi or something as the
yeah,
recommended, which makes it incredibly efficient. Because if you think about it, the squishy tires is like trying to push a sort of
Mhm.
a balloon along the floor,
yeah.
and if it's pumped up higher, it's easier. Um, and if you let them down to kind of 35, it doesn't actually do any harm uh, to the handling of the car or the braking, but it makes it ride much in a much nicer way.
But
So I don't know.
presumably you have a slight reduction in your range as
In
well,
your
do you?
range, yeah. I mean, any Model Y owners out there who've experimented, please let us know.
Do let us know in the comments below if you are watching this. If you're listening to it on your streaming service, then you can send us an email if you like, podcast@electrifying.com. We love to hear from you. And on the subject of hearing from you, let's dive straight into the comments. We had loads. Maybe first, because it was the first week back. Goodness me, you put tons of comments and brilliant ones. And I think we shall start with some welcomes to the world of electric driving. So I'll kick off with one. We had James BB70 saying, "Good chat." Thanks, James. We like a good chat. I took delivery of my EV in November and have been slow charging it at home. Really felt the difference in charging speed and range this week with the temperatures down to 0 degrees centigrade. Glad to reach the weekend when I'm able to charge it for longer. I nearly had to emergency charge it at a public charger. Loving the super cheap home rates. My energy bill has actually gone down by £40 a month. Brilliant. So, welcome to the
Mm.
world. You didn't say what it is that you've taken delivery of, but whatever it is, hopefully you followed our advice and you got yourself a good one. One
I
for
mean,
you, I think, next. Oh, sorry.
slow charging at home. Do you remember those days and kind of a 3-pin plug? I mean, on a Leaf or something, it's not too bad, but I remember plugging in an Audi e-tron, like the original e-tron, and it's saying time to fully charge 48 hours. It's like,
Yes.
what? When it was on a 3-pin plug.
Yeah.
I remember the first sort of electric car that I brought home properly to test, and I didn't have a charger, and it was a Nissan Leaf. It was the Nissan Leaf, and just plugging it in and thinking, gosh, there must be something wrong with this car. It can't possibly take that long to charge up. Because of course I was doing it
Mm.
in a 3-pin with an extension lead into my garage. All the things you shouldn't do. I know, but it was the only way. Couldn't get the cable through the window. Pretty quickly after that, I got a home charging box fitted. Had a Charge
Mm.
Master. Do you remember the old Charge Master
Mm.
ones?
Yeah, I
So I
had
had
one
one
of
of
those.
those, and but yeah, that was not. It was yeah. Yes, it does take rather a long time. So I think this next one is for you. Welcome to the EV Club, Vicky.
Yes, so this is from @PercyRanger, and he says, I got an R5 in December. Woohoo!
Whoop
Yay, go
whoop!
for you. That's amazing. That's really good. That's quite early delivery as well, isn't it? I thought they barely started deliveries. So yeah, really good. Let us
I
know what
presume
colour you
that's
went for.
abroad. Yeah, I presume
Must
that's
be, yeah.
abroad or something. Yeah.
Let
It's
us know, Percy Ranger, what you think of it, where you live, what you chose, what colour did you go for, all of the rest of it.
yes.
We want to
Yeah,
know
because
the
the choices on
details.
that car.
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw a navy blue one, a dark blue one recently, and with a sort of pale gold trim, and I thought it looked really classy, really, really cool. But meant to say about the charging. You were talking about the charging on a 3-pin. The first car I plugged in was the Nissan Leaf as well, and in fact, I think it was when I was with you, Tom, on the UK launch of the Mark 1 Nissan Leaf circa, 2011 in Milton Keynes. And we were
Yeah,
all talking about when you were launching the car, and I was there for Autocar, and it was many years ago, but yes, very sort of very nostalgic memories for me then. And then not, when the Twizy came out, I remember parking it virtually in my hallway. I could almost get the car into my house and sort of get the sort of curly cable out. It was, but yeah, I just had to mention that because I think the first one was the Leaf, and I remember Tom was there, and yeah, I can't remember how it was, sort of 24 hours. Everybody was talking about it taking 24 hours to charge, weren't they? How things change, eh?
We should explain for people that don't know that before Tom became an electrifier, and he had a previous life as head of PR for Nissan in the UK, and one of your roles was to launch the very first Nissan Leaf, wasn't it, Tom?
yeah, which is how I got hooked on it. Yeah, but we took over the Milton Keynes shopping centre and launched it inside because we realised that you could drive a car inside a building, which wasn't otherwise allowed because of the exhaust fumes. So we had to, you could drive through Milton Keynes shopping centre. It was great fun.
You didn't invite me. Honestly, Vicky got an invite. I didn't get an invite.
It was A-list, Jenny, A-list.
Oh, honestly.
Oh,
sorry,
wow.
Tom, we can't hear you.
I was
Tom's
gonna
line's
say.
going, Vicky. He's going. Tom, are you there? Right, let's move on. We have. Oh no, we've got another one. Go on. Do you want to do what Mark Smith? Welcome to the EV Club. Do you want to do that, Tom?
Yeah, so Mark Smith, WC1EK, says, I've been given an ID Buzz van by my company. I've had it 3 days and I love it. Now, I'll say, because obviously I'm not the biggest Buzz fan in the world, but by the barn, when I went out driving that Kia EV3 just on a little route, there's a plumbing company near where we do our filming. And they've got one, and it's white with grey bumpers and steel wheels with no hubcaps on. And I thought, that looks quite cool.
It looks really cool.
After they get rid of it, no doubt somebody will turn it into a camper van or something, or put 22-inch wheels and a Bentley engine in it. But at the moment, in base model spec, in white, I thought it looked cracking.
I think those steel rims look fantastic on it. They look really good. And there's a couple near me that a building company have got. And I just look, they look great. They look good on the road. But anyway, Mark, what a brilliant company van to have. Again, let us know. Give us an update how you're getting on with it. Right, we've got a car buying question from Train Driver Dan. Hello, Train Driver Dan. I wonder what Dan does for a living. Sorry. Train Driver Dan has a question about the best EV for motorway driving in terms of efficiency and comfort. He has a 70-mile round commute, 35 miles each way, the vast majority of which is motorway and A-road speeds with a few roundabouts where I can use regen. I'm looking for a used EV around 3 years old. The main contender for me is the Tesla Model 3 long range. Musk's recent antics, although deplorable, don't put me off. Are there any other alternatives that are good for motorway cruising? Now, he didn't mention his budget, but I'm guessing if he's in the market for a 3-year-old Model Y, it's probably around 20, would we reckon? 20, 21 maybe?
Yeah.
So I had a suggestion, but I'll let you two go first.
I wonder what
God,
yours
you're going
might
to
be,
say an
Jim.
Enya.
Oh, no. Well, don't worry. I was already wondering how much an ID7 would cost used, but I think that's going to be too much. I actually was.
You could have 4 Nissan Leafs and have them in a relay,
Yeah,
couldn't you?
absolutely. Blimey, motorway, used EVs. Well, I actually, weirdly, my initial thoughts went to something like a Citroen EC4 because I know they're very affordable. You wouldn't need to go 3 years old, and they're really comfortable, quiet, all of that. But they are a bit challenging to look at, and there are more efficient EVs out there. So you'd need to be comfortable with a 200-mile real-world range to do that.
Yeah.
And I don't know. You could consider a BMW i3, which I know doesn't sort of leap up as the best motorway car, but they're really great seats, great interior. They're really lovely to drive. I did a lot of motorway miles in an i3 when I had one, so that's a bit of a left field option. So
Okay.
I don't know. It's but there's a few options out there. Polestar 2, you can probably get a
Yeah.
Polestar 2 for similar money. That would be a really good option.
I was going to say that.
What am I forgetting, Tom? Have you got any ideas?
Well, I mean, 70 miles round trip isn't huge, isn't it?
It's not too
So
bad,
you
is
don't
it?
need you don't need a huge battery. I mean, I'd probably say something like a Cupra Born. That would be great, wouldn't it? They're really nice
Yeah.
on the
Yeah,
motorway
it would.
and efficient. But I mean, Model 3, used Model 3 is, yeah, if you want to do motorways and you're
It's
getting a
it's
charge and
hard to
stuff, it's
beat,
pretty
isn't it?
compelling. It
Yeah,
is.
I know.
Mm.
Do you think it's really hard to beat? Really impossible to beat? Do you not think?
Well, it
Do you not
depends on
think?
what you want, doesn't it? Isn't
Do you not think a used Skoda Enyaq with the big battery that would work really well, nice on the motorways?
it?
No, do
I
you
think
not
it
know?
partly
No.
depends as well on how, if they want to rapid charge off and that kind of thing. Access to the supercharger network
It's good.
is still
It's good.
a good thing, and also the way. I think you're right. I think a used Enyaq's right up there actually for the
It
for
is.
the comfort and the refine, all that stuff. Because actually
The
the
ca-
Model 3 wasn't the most refined.
no, the car
And
that I was going to suggest was actually a used Polestar 2 because I was looking on the
ah,
used listings
yeah,
over at
they're great value.
electrifying.com. There's a 2022 one on there at the moment with 32,500 miles, one previous owner,
Oh, see, that's really tempting, isn't
£999.
it?
It's a lovely
Mm.
car, that I think, for the money. And I would definitely, if you haven't driven a Polestar 2, try and get a driving one before you go for the 3.
Yeah.
It feels a more special car to me. Does
Yes.
it? Yeah.
Mm.
I would agree with that. I think your best thing is to definitely get a good test drive in a Model 3 and a Polestar 2. Oh, I've got an idea. What about
Go
a
on.
Jaguar I-Pace? Jaguar
Yes,
I-Pace. That'd be a
love
good one.
that.
Great car.
Love,
Really good.
lo- love that. And actually, there is one of those on the on our used car listings as well, around that kind of money. That is a really
Yeah.
good shout, Vicky. Oh
I'd
yeah,
forgotten about those. I still love the I-Pace. It's still a fantastic car, and it looks so good still. I see them,
it
and they're
does.
just they could launch that car now, and it would still look brilliant, wouldn't it? So yeah, that's one I'd forgotten. Tom, you're pulling faces. Are those good faces or
Well,
bad? Are you not an I-Pace fan?
I just hear a lot of people who love their iPace and a lot of other people who say never again. I would want a warranty. And
Yes.
also, I look at the auctions, as you know, and there are quite a lot of non-runners of iPaces, and they've got some fairly awful sounding issues on them, and you just think, oh my god, that
Mm,
poor owner.
mm,
So I would be
yeah.
wary, but if
But
you get
then
a
we do have
warranty,
to
then
say
why
that
not?
Ben, who works
Yeah,
with
yeah, yeah.
us, he's been running an iPace, and I think he's had it for 4 years. I think it must be now. Absolutely loves it, no problems with it, really happy. So it's I'm in the Vicky camp. I think definitely
Mm.
look at the iPace, but like Tom said, maybe just make sure that there is some kind of warranty on it as well.
Occasionally, you see an iPace, which is the pre-facelift one, and it has the small wheels because they obviously couldn't quite afford them or they didn't have that on, and they look hilarious. I don't know if you know, they're like multi-spoke and they're 18s or something, and they just look really daft. So,
Yeah.
Anyway, I think we got across that one. Right, should we go on to car extrovert, car introvert?
mm.
So let's go now on to the question we posed last week, which was, are you a car extrovert or an introvert? Goodness me, we had a lot of responses. Vicky, this came from the fact that Mike loves talking about his ID Buzz. Tom had grumpy face when we mentioned ID Buzz. He doesn't like it. It's too shouty. Not him. He's a car introvert, we decided. I think given that you've been driving around in a Cyberster for the last 3 months, you're probably in the extrovert camp, are you?
I think. Do you know, it's a bit tricky because I do sort of quite enjoy, invisible cars, if you know what I mean. Those cars that people just don't pay any attention to. Because I've also done quite a bit of mileage in a used Model 3, which I'll be running for the next. So the Cybus is going back, and then I'm going to spend a bit of time in a 170,000 mile Model 3, which would be really interesting. And it's the Mondeo of the modern world, isn't it? Every other car is a white Tesla Model 3. And I quite enjoy that in a funny way. But you're right. I think if I had to pick one, I think I am an extrovert because I have to say, swanning around in the Cyberster, and yeah, I do love a look at me car. I do rather like I do quite enjoy cars that make people look at me. There you go. I'm a car extrovert. I said it. Fine. I like a
Okay,
stylish car.
good. I was never going to let you argue any different.
Yeah, there
So,
you go.
so let's see what you've had to say. Kenneth Paul got in touch on YouTube and said, great show. I am definitely a car extrovert. I went with the Renault Megane because it always makes me look back. It's nice to do that with a car. And it's got so many extras included, like standard 22 kilowatt AC charging, which is great, and a heat pump. It does just what I need. It makes me smile every single time I use it. A car needs to make you smile, in my opinion.
Yes, absolutely.
Ooh. See, I quite like the Megane. I don't think that's necessarily an extrovert car. I think it's just a well-designed, nice-looking modern car.
All right.
Mm.
Okay, who's next?
Well, Neil 300ZX, who I think's probably got a 300ZX.
I was going to
Manos
say,
would
yeah,
like him,
Paul's got
doesn't he?
an
Yeah.
excellent old Nissan, yeah.
Yeah. I'm like Mike and Ginny, love talking cars. Well, I quite like talking cars. It's just, only with certain people and occasionally.
Or on a
Yeah.
podcast every week to loads of
Yeah,
people
well,
that you don't
exactly.
know as well, alternatively. I think it was more the point that we like people coming up and asking us about our cars. That's, I think, was the point. Do you want to do special circs, Vicky? I love this one.
Yeah, go on then. So at Special Circs, as primarily a biker, I love standing by the vehicle, chatting to enthusiasts and interested folk. It's a friendly, supportive community. I don't have the money to be able to have the kind of car people like to stop and stare at, but if I did, I'd be happy to chat about it.
Oh,
So there you go.
I like that.
I think, there's a real good community around bikes as well, isn't it? So I
Yeah.
guess it got a lot of attention in that regard. So yeah.
It's
a good one.
And I like this one. M Cooligan09, great episode, starts the new year with a giggle. Tom, accepting public interest in unusual EVs is the price you must pay if you are an evangelist for the transition. As the owner of a Citroen Ami as our second car, wherever it goes, it provokes a reaction, mostly favourable, and I am very happy to answer questions a la Ginny. Keep up the good work. Regards, Brendan McHale. You will get a lot of questions about that. Super cute. Okay, they're all extroverts, Tom, aren't they? I'm afraid. Go on, next one.
Well, I suppose just in the early days when I had a Leaf, because I had a Leaf in 2011, and you'd plug your car in, and you would get a small crowd of people saying, "How does that work?" Then? And in those days, it's like, well, I'm plugging in here, and it's free. It's free fuel. They're giving me free petrol to park at Marks and Spencers or wherever it was. And we're like, ooh.
Sadly, not anymore.
Yeah,
No.
yeah. So Andy Smith 9913 says, I'm definitely a car extrovert, just taken delivery of my Ioniq 5 and can talk about it until the cows come home.
Excellent. Love the Ioniq 5. Actually, as a used motorway car, maybe that's an option. Where else are we? At Patty the Geek.
Oh,
Tom.
regular.
Oh, Tom. About the buzz. Who hurt you? Kidding aside, not all cars appeal to all people. Sometimes the ones that don't make sense are the ones that bring us the most joy. I miss my Saabs terribly, despite their quirky ways, and perhaps because of their quirky ways. Yeah, well, that's a good point, isn't it?
That's a good point.
It's yeah.
And D-Fowls ID7, I wonder what D-Fowls drives. Car introvert, very firmly, hence buying the VW ID7.
Vicky, is that you?
It's me, secretly I've got one and I'm hiding it from you.
You write comments about it all over the place.
I do. I'm on forums all day long commenting on how excellent the Volkswagen ID7 is.
And good to hear D-Fowls ID7 follow that up with another good comment. Great to hear that the ENIAC swearbox concept is gaining traction.
Well, you just said the word again, so you have to pay another £1.
Is that £2 I owe now for this podcast alone?
Yeah.
It's going to be expensive, this.
Yes.
Thanks for thinking of that one, D-Fowls
And also,
ID7.
as a car introvert, well done for messaging in, because you would have thought most introverts don't bother, do they? That's the thing. No, I hope you're enjoying your ID7. I'm very jealous.
Okay.
I like Suki Bilan saying, love the channel. Could we have more content on the used market exclusively, please? Well, that's more work for me, so I like that idea.
Okay. We are going to do a lot more on used cars actually coming soon. So, do watch this space on that. And if you are thinking about used electrics, we do have used electric car listings over at electrifying.com. And Ogry Boy, let's move on now. Ogry Boy could have well been listening to our previous conversation. Don't be knocking the I-Pace. It's still hard to beat. And on my second, and no issues, and most of all, cool design and performance, you're beginning to sound like an anti-UK manufacturer channel. Not Vicky and I are not, actually. We're not, are we, Vicky? I think that's firmly... Tom is the I-Pace basher on the team, and Mike.
Where's the Leaf? Hang on, the I-Pace wasn't made in Britain for a start.
No,
True, it was made in Austria. Oh, yeah.
And you talk about UK-made EVs, Nissan Leaf.
Oh. Can we get a swear box for the Nissan Leaf as well? If I've got one.
So I don't think I can be talked about as anti-UK manufacturer if I talk about the Leaf every minute of every day.
Well, there you go.
Okay, now one of the other things that we talked about last week was Tesla, and we were just having a general chat about has Tesla put you off buying an electric car? Is he becoming a problem? And we got quite a lot of comments around this. So let's just go into some of those. EAR 8129, lots to digest in the last kilowatt hour. Definitely for me, Elon Musk's antics steered me away from buying a second-hand Tesla and getting a Renault Megane on the back of your reviews, which I am absolutely delighted with. Goes on to say, love the ID Buzz, so jealous of Mike. I rarely see them on the road, but I smile when I do. So yeah, a lot of people not feeling that Musk is doing Tesla much favours at the moment.
Like Anthony Evans 646, he says, if the only option was a Tesla, I'd rather catch the bus. Kevin Coombs seems to feel the same way. Kevin Coombs 7348, Musk definitely putting me off buying a Tesla. It's a bright green Renault 5 for me. Even if I do have to go for my lovely Mark 7 Golf GT. Home from new.
Nice.
Must be green in my daughter's Buzz, question mark.
And then let's end it with this one. Colin Wiseman. Although I dislike Elon's foray into politics, if I were to stop using Tesla because of his politics, I would never buy a Chinese-made car or any other product from China because their politics with being friends of certain countries is way worse than some rambling idiot with too much time on his hands. So interesting. We've actually got a poll running over at electrifying.com, which asks that very question. So if you haven't already, do head over there and fill in our survey because we're just trying to get a bit of a gauge for what EV buyers think about Musk and is he in danger of actually putting people off his brand, which would be a shame because they are brilliant cars, fantastic charging infrastructure. So go over there and let us know what you think. We were chatting a lot about charging last week because charging got better. And this was because of Hillary, who had emailed in saying she was basically having a nightmare. She lived in Wales, really wanted an electric car, lives in a terraced house, no chargers nearby. Council wouldn't help her with getting anything installed locally. So, could we give her a light at the end of the tunnel, which hopefully we did. And we've had a bit more light at the end of the tunnel from Stony Ness, who said, I live around 60 miles northwest of Cardiff in one of the South Wales valleys. Similar circumstances to Hillary, living in a terraced house, off-street parking, made the move to electric around 6 months ago. There are AC chargers installed in Kensal car parks 100 metres away from my house. In practice, I more often charge at the supermarket and a council car park near to my work. So over time, it is getting better. So I think the word again to Hillary really is, it is better. And I think what we were encouraging Hillary to do was to download an app and to start really looking at where charging was around her as well. So I think we then put the question out, Vicky, do you think that charging is getting better? And I think we would probably all say that it is, wouldn't we?
Yeah, I think it absolutely is. But, as we're seeing from these comments, I think still one of the problems is that you do tend to get a slight sort of charging desert when it comes to certain rural areas and, slightly more far-flung places are still slightly suffering for that. So, I don't blame them for sort of complaining about it because I think it is still taking some time. I think rapid charging on the main roads has improved massively in the last 12 to 48 months. It's been an incredible change. So, yeah, but curbside charging and options for people who live in terrace houses, that's, really significant. But yeah, with the government finally issuing that legislation update on, putting cross pavement charging, that kind of thing, hopefully it will get better. Yeah.
Yeah, well, Ian Vickery has a great comment, I thought. Regarding street charging, I'm one EV drivers, you cannot charge at home, but I get free charging at work. He says, I've spoken to Liverpool City Council and their response was people who live in houses without a driveway aren't wealthy enough to afford an electric car. I bet they didn't put that in writing.
If they put that in writing, Ian, please send that to us. We beg you. If that if that actually was sent in an email or letter, we really beg you to send that to us.
But he says, I find it amazing we can drill for oil a couple of miles under the North Sea, pipe it ashore, process it, tanker it to a petrol station so ICE drivers can purchase it. But it's beyond us to get electricity the 2 meters across a pavement. It's very true.
So
very
true.
true.
So true, isn't it? And then coming back to that point that you've just made, Vicky, about it's that charging being great in certain areas and not so great still in others. Chris, who lives in Whitby, said, live in Whitby, major tourist area, very beautiful one as well. There is one 50 kilowatt charger in the town. One.
Yeah.
No
It's
use.
a nightmare, isn't it?
Yeah. And Tony Barton said, we have a wonderful charging map where I live on the Isle of Wight. 95% of the charge points shown are at people's homes and the rest public charging. The locals aren't happy with queues outside their houses. I love the fact of some tourists rocking up, knocking on the door, can I have a cup of tea in the charge? Would you let somebody in if somebody knocked on your door and said, I need to charge, can I have a cup of tea in the charge? So I'm asking you both, would you? What would you say?
Not
I'd
unless
probably
there's
let
really
them charge
desperate.
if they were really urgent need, but I don't know that I particularly want them in my house.
Well, you let them sit
If
in
I
the
really
car
needed
outside.
to, then maybe. I'd say, yeah, no, you can't come in, but yeah, you can plug it in if you really need to. But no, maybe I'm just an antisocial. What's it?
Have you used one of those apps to charge at people's house anyway?
No, the one where you can, you share people's driveway. I tried one in Cornwall a couple of times because it's got a bit better down there. But where I always go in Cornwall, in North Cornwall, was a complete charging desert. And I thought, that's got to work. But no, it was a complete charging desert for those apps as well. Does anybody use those apps? Let us know. Drop us an email, podcast@electrifying.com, or in the comments below. Have you either used one or are you registered for one to share your charger with people? I mean, everybody thought it was going to be the new big thing, this kind of shared economy. We'll all use each other's chargers. I always thought, no, that's not going to happen because, it's sort of, I don't know, it doesn't feel that people would want to do that. But let me know if I'm wrong. I love this from Alan Gravy. What is it? Every day is a school day. Google Maps now has charger details, which you can activate in settings. I didn't know that. That made me so happy. Did either of you two know that?
I didn't actually know.
Yeah, you can do it. It's one of the search options, but I couldn't make it the default, so I still get petrol stations. But if I need to find an EV charger, I can go and find it.
I love Google Maps. That did make me happy. I mean, probably need to get out more, Vicky, do I?
Well, you and me both, because that sort of thing does make me very happy as well. It's like I heard that there's a huge new, I think it's Instavolt super hub going in at the bottom of the A34, which I was extremely happy about. It's like they've heard me moaning about the charging on the A34 and the M3. So
does it have a McDonald's attached to it? Like,
yeah, exactly.
I wish
that's the
they'd
danger.
44 rapid charges. It's going to be great.
I wish they'd do a deal with a place that did better food, like a farm shop or something. I don't know. I just don't love McDonald's food, and the coffee's not very good. So, yeah, I'm sorry. And, anyway.
You want a Gales, don't you? That's...
I don't know about Gales, because Gales is quite expensive, but just somewhere that does, I don't know. Like, wouldn't it be a good business model to have a little converted electric van with coffees and cakes, and you go and drive around and park at busy charging hubs?
Yeah, that could work.
Yeah, that's it. Okay, if this fails, that's my new career. That's the one.
That's
okay,
the next.
Let's move on.
That's the next electrifying business that we're going to set up. Yeah, exactly. Going to have an electrifying van.
So, talking of winter and EVs, Philip Taylor 7902 says, I had a novel EV winter issue this week. My charging flap was iced up and needed thawing out before I could plug in.
That happened to me last week.
Don't lots of people have problems with like the door handles that pop out on like Teslas and things as well, getting into their car there?
I had that on the MG, on the Cyberster. Couldn't get the door open at all, just completely frozen solid. So I had to sort of put the aircon on via the app, and it took about half an hour for the car to work. It was unbelievable. I was de-icing the doors, and it just wouldn't do anything. The whole door was shut. It wasn't even the button. It was just the whole door was frozen shut. So,
hairdryer out there trying
I seriously considered that sort of thing. Yeah, I was like, what can I do here? Yeah, bit of a nightmare. With my extrovert car and its scissor doors.
James England has a tip for us. One simple step to marginally increase range is to park facing the windshield and driver's side windows to the sun, which will remarkably help warm the interior. The converse on hot days to reduce the cabin heating. Very wise tip.
Yeah. We've got Peter Gahan, 9076. On Thursday evening, it was -5 and my Corsa was charging at 13 kilowatt and eventually reached 25. Well, I suppose it depends on how fast the charger was that you were plugged into, but I'm assuming that's not great.
And Ginny, talking of the crap you keep in the back of your car, so Ginny, keep the printer in the boot. The extra weight will be benefit for the rear axle traction in the snow.
Thanks, Auntie Buddy.
I think you do.
For that
you do keep it in the boot, don't you? It's
in the boot. Should I take it to the tip one day, or where you have to take your used electronics? It's been in there now since November. Okie doke. Let's end on a couple here about the length of this podcast. Should we rebrand it? David Timperley says, great show as always, but I've noticed that the half hour is now approaching 50 minutes regularly. Perhaps it is time for a rebrand, the Kilowatt Hour.
But then we'd have to talk for an hour.
we like the fact that we can be flexible on half hour.
Perhaps we'll just talk slowly.
And Madman Donna One said, I'd be here for the Kilowatt half hour. It's very soothing listening to you chat in a lovely, friendly manner about cars old and new. So make the show an hour instead. I mean,
maybe we should do like an editor's cut. We should keep it to the Kilowatt half hour, and then Manos would love it, and then he can do it. He can do a full hour version of with outtakes and everything. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, maybe we do one with the outtakes. What you won't see is that my microphone has fallen off this table 3 times so far. It's been a very interesting behind the scenes podcast. But on that, I think we will go and mull over whether we rebrand as the Kilowatt Hour. But until we do, from all of us on the Kilowatt half hour, thanks for joining us. Thanks for listening. Thanks for all your comments. Keep them coming. We'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.